Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Raccoon Laboratory. This is week 3 of our drawing lessons. Today, we're going to be drawing plants. So if there's a plant in your life, if there's a plant in your field of view, that would be ideal. You will be able to apply the things that I'm talking about today to any number of objects. So if you don't have any plants around, as I always say, you can always take off your shoe, put it on the table in front of you. That seems to be a great way to draw. Um, but you can kind of use whatever works for you. But I am going to use plants because they are deceptively complicated. They are much more complicated than they seem. And we're going to talk today about studies, about the idea of sort of thinking through what it means that plants are recognizable in terms of like what species they are, but they're all different. Every individual plant is different, even though they have some qualities that are recognizable. So we're going to talk a little bit about, from the perspective of someone making observational drawings, where do those qualities come from, and how can we better take them in. And I think drawing offers a unique approach to thinking about the differences between individual things and the similarities between categories or things within categories, if that makes sense. Before we get started, I do want to say my downstairs neighbors has some very frustrated huskies. So if you hear some weird noises throughout the video, I'm sure I will say this many times, my neighbors' dogs are screaming and they sound like people. They sound like human beings who are tied up, and that is not what's happening. My neighbor has dogs. They're really loud. My neighbor's also, I think, his band is practicing or something. So if you hear any weird sounds, they're coming from downstairs. I truly wish I could make them stop, and I can't. So I'm just here to draw. That's all I got for you. So let's get started. Today we're going to meditate again. And the reason we meditate is that I think observational drawing is a form of meditation. So we're going to warm up by focusing on our breathing. So I just want you to, without really changing the way that you breathe, just breathing naturally, I want you to just inhale through your nose and out through your mouth. And in through your nose, and out through your mouth. And I want you to just feel the breath entering your nose, and just pay attention to it. Pay attention to how that feels. If it helps you focus, you can count them. And if you feel yourself getting distracted, if you're thinking about things that have happened throughout the day or wondering about the future, just try to focus back on your breath. And there's that music from downstairs. And that's nice. So, I've said this before, but some of you may be watching this for the first time. The reason we do that is because when we're drawing, at least the way that we're going to be drawing today, we're going to be focusing on the edges of things. And that's where our line comes in, is we're going to be mentally tracing the edges of our objects as we see them. And so more than thinking about constructing something on the page, building something, or combining ideas, or trying to like understand what we're looking at and really put it on the paper, we're not going to do much of that. We're just going to be looking at what we're drawing and then trying to trace what we see offset onto our paper. And it's just like focusing on the breath. It's actually a very natural movement. Pretty much most people can trace relatively easily if you have a transparent sheet of paper on top of something. And so all this is we're moving the paper over. And your brain really can do that. You can adjust in that way. So to prove it to you, we're going to start today by doing like an iconic symbolic study of our plant or of whatever object is in front of you. So if you're not set up yet, please get set up with something. If you don't have a plant, then any object will do. I have been told that this ambiguity is confusing for some people, so I'm going to be specific and say that if you don't have a plant, you should grab a coffee mug. A totally arbitrary choice on my part, but you have to do it if you're a person who needs structure. And you're going to put the coffee mug in front of you, and we're going to draw it. So I will be drawing my roommate Caitlin's basil plant. There it is in all of its glory. It smells great. Hopefully it's happy without sun for a little bit, for about an hour. So what I want to do with this first drawing is this is kind of like a test run. This isn't the kind of tracing or thoughtful observational drawing that I try to cultivate on this channel. Instead, we're going to do a little study, and we're going to try and understand each one of the individual leaves. Again, if you're not drawing a plant, let's say you are drawing a coffee mug, then I want you to try and draw a something that other people would recognize as a coffee mug. I think often about, my phone is in dire straits here, but if you look at the icon on an iPhone for a phone, let me find it here. So if you look at this icon, right? I was just talking to my friend about this the other day. You see that that's an image of a telephone, but this is a phone. And this doesn't look anything like the image of a telephone on the button that makes this phone do phone stuff. So that's really wild to think about, but it's true that this shape right here used to be what phones physically looked like. So we're going to try and make something like this, like an icon, out of the object that we're looking at. So I'll just do a little quick one. If you are drawing a coffee mug, I would like to see something like this. If you were designing an app that was like a digital coffee app somehow, for some reason, then what would your icon look like? And I'm going to do that with the basil leaves. So let's get started. So what I'm thinking about with this basil leaf is I can see that the edges of the leaf are kind of jagged. It has one vein down the middle, and then it has all of these diagonal veins cascading out from the center. And it's not like some branches where the lines are offset from each other. They actually all connect to the same point. I don't know if all leaves are like that. I think they might be, but I honestly don't know. I'm also noticing that the edges of there are those huskies. The edges of those veins terminate at the little like ragged points on the sides of the leaf. So then I'm going to put my vein here. Then I'm going to do one of these. And I don't want you to worry too much about how this looks. I just want you to, work off of your instinct. If you have to simplify the thing, what would it look like? It's a noisy day in the neighborhood, y'all. Okay, so maybe that looks like a basil leaf to you, maybe it doesn't. And the goal of this video is that we're going to do this again at the end, and I suspect that your drawing, your iconic symbol of your object, will look better after we have done the exercises we are about to do. So finish up your symbol, your cute little icon, and then we're going to get started with some drawings, some proper drawings. So what I want to do here is these are going to be studies. In a future video, I am going to start talking about composition. I'm going to start talking about using the space on the page as an image. This is a whole topic. It has all kinds of depth and complexity to it. We're not going to really deal with that in today's video. In today's video, all we're going to do is focus on one part of the plant at a time. And if you have an object that is not a plant, I want you to focus on one detail, like one curve of the handle or one edge. And we're going to make little floating studies in our sketchbook or on our paper of that part of the object. And if you're not used to these videos, I am, in fact, using a Sharpie. I'm doing that for a number of reasons, one of which is that it looks good on camera, but also because I think it is healthy to have to commit to the lines that you're drawing. So if you are on the fence about what kinds of tools to use, I would actually try drawing with a Sharpie or drawing with like a ballpoint pen. It's interesting what happens when you have to like really commit to the lines that you're putting on the page. So without further ado, I'm going to stop talking about it and start drawing. And I'm going to pick this set of leaves right here because I really love the way that they kind of scoop up. I love that angle. So I'm going to draw it right over here, sketchbook style. I'm actually not going to flip the page like I normally do. And so I'm just going to start on the inside edge here. Follow the stem down until we get to the edge of the leaf. These poor dogs. Okay. Then I'm going to follow this here. I'm going to move my drink here because my hand's running into it. And so you're just following the edges of what you're drawing. This time we don't want to think about it. We're not simplifying it. We're not trying to do anything. We're just following the curves of an interesting part of the object. If you end up cutting part of it off on the edge of the page, it doesn't really matter. It's not gonna hurt it because we're not so worried about the final drawing. We're more interested in developing the ability to make studies and become comfortable taking in detail. It's very dramatic music. I don't know if you guys can hear it. I love that. Cool. If your drawing looks something like this, almost like a jumble of curvy lines, you were doing a great job. And I just want to reiterate, I'm going to say this a bunch of times in this video, please keep sending me your drawings. I love seeing your drawings. It's wonderful. And if anybody, I've had nobody take me up on it yet, but if you're interested in sending me a drawing that you would like for me to show on the show, I would love to do that. I've been so impressed with people who are following along and genuinely engaging with this way of drawing. I think everybody's getting way better already, and that's really exciting to see. Okay, so now I've got my outline, so I'm going to start to get into kind of the details and the veins of everything. Today we're not going to worry so much about shadows. Oh, these dogs. I think they're just bored, you know? Huskies are so smart. And they're all cooped up. This neighborhood's pretty walkable, but still. You wouldn't want to be... They need, like, a bunch of room outside, you know? Okay. All right, so there's our first drawing. So what we're going to do next, now that we've kind of settled in, is we're going to do a series of timed drawings. So they're going to be a little bit faster. If you haven't tried this before, it's super scary at first, but I think it's really fun. It forces you to make decisions about what the most important part of the object you're drawing is. So I want you to pick another section of your object. If you feel like you're kind of running out of new ways of looking at the thing that you're drawing, just rotate it. Maybe turn it on its side, flip it upside down. If it's a plant, don't do that, but you can rotate, you can turn it around. I've got plenty more basil leaves to look at, so I'm going to flip to no, I'm not going to flip to a new page. I'm going to do one more study. And so this, we're just going to go wild right off the bat. And we are going to draw for 1 minute. Very short amount of time. Okay. And here we go. So we've got 1 minute. I'm picking these top leaves. I'm going to have to draw real quick because I was drawing pretty slowly before. I want you to spend as much time looking at the thing you're drawing as you possibly can. All right, and that is 1 minute. Super fast. And I like that timing, actually, so we're just going to go right ahead, start a whole new drawing, and we're going to do another minute. All right, so get ready, pick another angle, and let's go. Ooh, I like that. I'm going to pick this part right here. It's funny, my drawing started to fall apart because I was thinking about, like my mind just kind of flashed to what I was going to do in the next episode. I like found myself brainstorming, couldn't help it, and then my drawing got worse. It reminds me, I've never tried this, but there's a form of meditation that involves shooting a bow. The idea being that if you can meditate correctly and concentrate, you're more accurate. And I think that is true about drawing as well. If you lose focus, you get a kind of jumbled section. All right, so now I'm going to increase the time a little bit. I'm going to do one more drawing on this page. We're going to do a 2-minute drawing this time. So I want you guys to pick a new spot, and I want you to get ready for one more 2-minute drawing. All right, so here we go. It might be surprising how much more time this is. 2 minutes doesn't seem like a lot, but it's literally twice the amount of time we had before, which is a lot. I hear people often use, especially on the internet, on like Reddit or something, I hear people use the word sketch to refer to any drawing that isn't like a finished digital painting. Like all kinds of people will post drawings that they clearly put hours, maybe even days of work into, and they'll say, oh, I finished this sketch. But in my mind, that's not what a sketch is. This is a sketch. You are literally drawing for 2 minutes. It's barely enough time to get any information in there, which is the whole point. You're just trying to get a loose sense of, what does this thing look like? You know, what can I learn about it by looking at it? I think it's true even with these disconnected images. You start to get an idea of what the plant looks like as a whole. I'm doing a kind of disembodied second study here because I've got 20 more seconds and finished my first one. All right, that is time. Okay, how are you guys feeling? Is it getting easier? Is it getting harder? What we're going to do next is we're going to do a much longer drawing. I think I'm going to double it again to about 4 minutes. So that's going to be a big enough jump that we're going to have to actually slow down mentally, add in more details, sort of be prepared to take in more and to go at a slower pace. So I'm going to get a fresh page here. I think I might rotate the plant too. And if you haven't tried it yet, I would really advise try drawing with a permanent material. It's fun. It's weird, especially when you have a little bit more time, and then you find yourself stuck with maybe what were bad decisions or what were mistakes. Some really interesting artwork can come out of that. Sometimes really beautiful drawings have glaring, quote-unquote, mistakes in them. And the reason or one of the reasons they work and one of the reasons they look good is because you committed to them. So, all right, we're going to do a 4-minute drawing here. All right, and here we go. It's really quite a soundscape in my apartment today. Whenever you feel yourself starting to drift into your drawing, like fussing about the lines, focusing a little too much on whether everything's in the right spot, I want you to look back at the object and not at your drawing. It's very difficult to do. It takes a lot of diligence, but it's going to make your drawings way better. I can feel myself already getting a little too excited about the details in this spot, so I'm going to try and move on. We want to try and work the whole drawing as much as we can, because 4 minutes is a decent amount of time, but it's not a ton of time. So one of the things we're really looking for are these negative spaces, because there are shapes in between the shapes, and that's going to help you understand where everything goes. And you can start to see those when you look at your object, and I'll show you what I mean. I'll kind of interrupt my own drawing here to show you what I mean. We have a minute and a half left, so you can keep working on your drawing. But if you look at what I'm working on here, I'll put this sticky note here, and trace the space in between the leaves. If I can see it. So you see this right here. It's open on one side, right? It's open on this side, but this is a shape, even though this is a leaf and this is a leaf. This is a shape. It's just space. So when you're looking at your object and you find yourself getting kind of lost, or you can't tell, you know, like I tend to get lost in places like this line here. Like, how long is this line? I don't know exactly, and especially because the leaves are pointed towards me, if I shift my head, the length of that line changes quite a bit. And so what can make it easier is don't worry about this shape here. Worry about this shape, because it's specific, and it'll look wrong pretty quickly and pretty obviously if you don't have the proportions right. So you can match the shape of the negative space to the shape of a gap between two leaves in your object. And that's just another way to keep track of where you are in your drawing without fussing too much over the lines that you're actually working with, or with the sort of presences, you know, like the surfaces, or, you know, like leaves, or like a handle or something. You're not worrying as much about that. You're worrying about the space in between it, and then the third thing, the thing in between the spaces, is your object. It's difficult to do that mentally, but you can kind of switch between them. And that's a little bit of what we were practicing last week when we were working on shadows. So that was time. That was 4 minutes. I didn't even get close to finishing my study, but I got kind of carried away trying to explain myself, so I hope that was helpful. So I think we're going to do one more study, and this one is going to be 7 minutes long, so it's almost another doubling of our time. So this time, we're going to really be focused. We're going to really take our time. We're going to very slowly trace the outline of the object that we see onto our page. And the slower you go, the more you're really following it as if you're touching it, and it almost becomes like kinesthetic and almost becomes about touch, the more accurately you'll be able to draw. And we want, when our drawing takes longer, we want to slow down to catch those edges, because all of the other positions are dependent on our initial outline, right? Like if we're kind of following the big contours of an object and we get it really wrong, then everything else is going to be wrong in it precisely the way that our big contour is wrong, right? Especially if you start drawing something like a coffee cup or like a mug, where you quickly run out of big outlines, where you kind of draw the outline of the cup, and then you start to think about drawing the reflections, maybe drawing the logo, maybe detailing the contours, things like that. All of those details are going to be in the right or wrong place in relation to your big outline. So I don't say that to make you worry about it, but when we have more time, it makes sense to spend more time on the biggest shapes, the biggest gestures, to try and get them right while we can. All right, so just give me a second here to get set up. I gotta fix this thing. My brother and I are working on a new camera setup, and I promise it's on the way. I'm unsatisfied with this situation, but we're just doing what we can. Okay. Okay, So let's get started. 7 minutes. Here we go. Even though I like that spot, I'm not going to pick the same spot. I find that if I can repeat myself, I will, you know? It's like my brain wants an easy way out from drawing what I'm seeing, so if I've never seen what I'm seeing before, it's easier to actually look at it. If you've ever seen people turn photographs upside down to trace them, or once I did that with some letters on this show, that's why. It's to make them unfamiliar so you pay attention to what you're looking at a little bit more. I'm going kind of fast. So we're just following the contours, occasionally distracted by the barking dogs. We can just bring our attention back to what we're seeing. And pay attention to those spaces in between the objects. They're really helpful. After doing those really short drawings, it's funny, 7 minutes feels like forever. But one of these days I'm going to have everybody, we're just going to work on one drawing the whole time. Because it's not uncommon if you're trying to make a drawing to work on it for hours. So spending 45 minutes on one drawing really isn't that weird. It feels like a lot though, I think, especially if you're used to doing drawings like this. But I do think doing quick drawings helps us make better decisions faster about what's important, about what we're seeing. I think it helps keep us from getting too fussy or too precious about whatever it is we're looking at. So I'm starting to add in some details. We've got 3 minutes left. I find that it's really important to draw the parts of the object that are in front first, just because of it makes it easier for your eye to understand what it's looking at. It's easier to draw a full leaf and then draw a partially obscured leaf and then draw a much more obscured leaf than to try to work from the back to the front, with like a very obscured leaf to a partially obscured leaf to a full leaf. It's easier just because drawing, a part of the object that's fully exposed, it's more intuitive. You have more to work off of. It might be an interesting exercise to do it the other way, actually, because it might trip you up in a way that is useful. So another thing to start thinking about as you're making these drawings is that the more attention you pay to something, the more the viewer's eye is going to be drawn to it. So as we make these drawings, I want you to try and prioritize the things that are in front, the things that are important. Because if you spend a bunch of time on something that's a minute detail, it's just distracting people away from what you really want them to see. And so as we're getting towards the end of the drawing and getting towards the end of the time, one of the tricks I like to do is to actually start drawing faster and to kind of rough in the stuff in the background. And what that can do for you is it allows you to cover more ground more quickly, right? But also the viewer can tell that you haven't spent as much time thinking about or really rendering that part of the image. And so you can get a nice kind of loose feel to some parts of the plant as opposed to others. That might seem incongruous, but it basically makes the things that are in front seem more important than the things that are in back. And you'll see some great painters do this. I don't know if I could think of anybody off the top of my head, but I see this in painters that are willing to be less than photorealistic, but who want their objects to seem real. They'll often rough in parts in the background. So you can kind of see here how our plant cascades into our awareness, and that almost feels spatial. It doesn't just feel like a rendering technique. I think people understand intuitively that when we're talking about really large distances or painting a landscape or something, as objects or elements recede into the background, they actually start to fade to white as opposed to fading to black, unless it's at night, of course. So as they fade away, they lighten, they become misty, they become foggy. And so you can get that effect in your drawings by roughing in things that are behind other things a little bit looser. It's kind of counterintuitive because I think the inclination is to try and make things that are hidden darker, right? Because you think of them as being in shadow. So it's a little counterintuitive, but I think it works pretty well. I think you can see that here. You can see where I started to rough in the edge of the pot here. And yeah, I could continue to do that, and it would fill the page while leaving our most important, most present details up front, because the outlines are both darker and they're more deliberate, they're more decisive. They very obviously took more time to make. So yeah, and that's one of the things that I actually like about drawing physically as opposed to drawing digitally, is there is this element of time that translates from you, the artist, to the person looking at the work. I hear this talked about in painting more than in drawing, but I think it applies to both if the material is physical, because it's hard to explain, but usually you can tell if something took a long time to make, and that makes people want to spend a lot of time with something. So finally, to end this session, what we are going to do is we're going to do one more iconic basil leaf. So now that we've spent all this time really studying, really kind of like digging in, we have like a page of studies, we have some longer drawings. It seems kind of funny to say because 7 minutes isn't that long, but you get what I mean. Um, what we're going to do is we're going to make our icon. And so I'm going to draw it on this sticky pad right here. And I'm going to look at my basil leaf, and I want you guys to do the same. Look at your object. But I just want you to intuitively make the thing the way you would make it. And now that you've actually done some studies, I wonder, is it better? Was this easier? And here's my basil leaf. I actually think it does look better. I'm not sure. Let me see. Oh, it looks way better. Huh. So this middle one was my initial basil leaf. From the ignorant predictive part of my brain that didn't really know what the plant looked like yet, but now I've drawn it a bunch, and look at that. Look how much better that is. It's way better. So I hope your drawings are better too. I hope you're getting better. I hope you're benefiting from these classes. I hope you're enjoying yourself. If you are watching this and you enjoy the content that we are making, please subscribe to Firebird Community Arts channel. We are going live every Thursday at 7 p.m. and every Sunday at 3, and that's all Central Time. And if I'm not here, I'm making the videos in advance, and we're still posting them. So we're committed to doing this. We're doing lots of drawing videos right now, but we're going to bring all kinds of other things into this channel. I've got lots of exciting stuff brewing. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much to Firebird Community Arts for supporting us. Thank you so much to my brother Dan for helping me produce this show. We have some scripted episodes and scripted edits that are going to be coming out probably in about a month. We're still working on them, but I'm super excited about that. And as always, this week we are featuring a nonprofit in Garfield Park. This week it is Breakthrough. They are like a religious affiliated organization, but they... if that's not your thing, I understand that, but they do really, really great work. I've had a great time working with them, particularly after the looting maybe a month ago. Garfield Park looked pretty rough. There was a lot of broken glass around, and an 18-year-old who went to Breakthrough, was involved in one of their programs, personally organized a huge community cleanup and brought out a bunch of people to come pick up trash, sweep up glass, and just clean up the neighborhood. And it was pretty amazing. Over the course of maybe 2 days, the whole neighborhood was cleaned up, and it wasn't just Breakthrough Ministries. There were all kinds of people from all over this neighborhood who worked really hard to just clean up their own streets, clean up their sidewalks, clean up, the strip malls and stuff. So that was really inspiring, was really amazing. And I did a little bit of research, and Breakthrough continues to do great work. So they're taking donations, they're distributing food. They also build and provide opportunities to the community, whether that's training young people for leadership roles. They hire people in the community. So they seem like a really great organization. So if you can support them, please do. If you can support Firebird Community Arts, please do that as well. That makes this work possible. And I think that's all I've got for you. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to reach out to me. You can email me at manion.charles@gmail.com. That's my name. That's manion.charles@gmail.com. I'd love to see your drawings. And yeah, I'll take any questions, criticism, etc. Thanks.